The story happened to me about a year ago. I've never shared it before, not with friends, not with family, because, honestly, I wasn't sure if anyone would believe me. But I swear to you, every word of this is true. And if you're ever hiking alone, pay attention to what's around you, and never, ever pick up something that doesn't belong to you. It started on a Sunday morning. I'd gone hiking alone, something I used to do all the time to clear my head. I live in northern Georgia, near the Chattahoochee National Forest, and there's a less traveled trail I like to take. Quiet, peaceful, no cell signal, just the sound of wind and leaves. About 2 miles in, I stopped to take a break. That's when I saw it, half buried under a pile of wet leaves near a boulder. It was a cell phone, a black Android, older model, screen cracked, but still intact. No case, just sitting there, like someone had dropped it recently. Curiosity got the best of me. I picked it up, wiped the screen with my sleeve. It was dead, so I stuck it in my backpack, figuring maybe I could charge it and check for a lock screen later, maybe find its owner. I know now that was a mistake. I got home that evening and plugged the phone in. At first, nothing happened. Then, after a minute, the screen lit up. No passcode, just opened straight to the home screen. The wallpaper was a picture of the woods. Nothing unusual, until I realized it looked exactly like the trail I'd been on. Like the picture had been taken that same day. There were only 2 apps on the home screen, Gallery and Recorder. I opened the gallery, just 4 pictures, all blurry, all taken in the forest. One of them showed a shadow in the trees, tall, human-shaped, but something about the proportions looked off. Then I opened the Recorder app. There were 3 audio files. I played the first one. It was about 30 seconds of wind, footsteps, then a low voice whispering, "He's here." I stopped the playback. My heart was pounding. Against my better judgment, I played the second one. Same footsteps, then a loud rustling, like something crashing through the underbrush, and someone running. Then it cut off. I didn't touch the third recording. I should have deleted everything right then. But instead, I left the phone on the kitchen table, screen face down, and tried to sleep. That night, I dreamed of the woods, only I wasn't alone. Someone, or something, was following me. I kept turning, but I could never see its face, just the outline, tall, wrong. The next morning, the phone was gone. I live alone. No one else has a key. I searched everywhere. Nothing. I convinced myself I had moved it and forgotten, maybe tossed it in a drawer or something. I went to work like nothing happened. But that night, things escalated. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of knocking, not at the front door, at my bedroom window. 3 slow knocks. I live on the 2nd floor. I froze, didn't even breathe. My bedroom has blackout curtains, so I couldn't see out, and I wasn't about to look. Then, my phone lit up. Unknown number. 1 word on the screen. "He's here." I turned on every light in the house, stayed awake till sunrise, checked every inch of the place. Nothing. But I wasn't imagining this. Later that day, I bought security cameras and installed them that evening. Front door, backyard, hallway. I didn't sleep. 2 nights later, something triggered the motion sensor on my front porch. I didn't check until the next morning. What I saw in the footage, I'll never forget. At 3:18 a.m., a figure walked up to my porch. Not walked, limped, like its left leg was stiff, dragging behind it. It stood facing the door for exactly 2 minutes. No movement, no sound. It looked like a man, but the body was distorted. The arms were too long, the head tilted at an unnatural angle, and the eyes, they reflected light like an animal's. Then slowly, it turned its head, not toward the camera, toward the side window, my bedroom window. Then it vanished, not walked away. 1 frame it was there, the next, it wasn't. I moved out that week, broke my lease, got rid of everything, even my phone. I haven't gone hiking since. I don't know what I found out there in those woods. I don't know if someone was playing a sick game, or if it was something worse. But whatever it was, it followed me. So if you're ever out in the middle of nowhere, and you find a phone just lying there, like it's waiting to be picked up, do yourself a favor. Don't. You might not like who it belongs to. When people talk about haunted houses, they think of creaking floors or flickering lights, maybe the occasional shadow in the hallway. But what happened to me wasn't like that. It was quiet, it was clever, and for months I didn't even know something was living inside my walls. My name is Kyle. I'm 31 now, but this started when I was 27, right after I bought my first house in upstate New York. I was proud of it. A two-story place built in the 1950s, a little rough around the edges, but it had charm. Big yard, quiet street. It felt like a fresh start, or so I thought. It started small. Just a week after I moved in, I noticed weird things. Tools not where I left them. Light switches flipped the wrong way. I figured I was just distracted with unpacking. Everyone misplaces stuff, right? But then, the noises began. At first, it sounded like scratching, coming from inside the walls, not mice. I grew up with mice in our old place. This was different, heavier, slower, like nails dragging along the wooden beams behind the drywall. I chalked it up to the house settling. That's what people say, right? Old houses make noises. Then one night, around 3 a.m., I heard it again, but louder. A dragging sound, like something crawling through the wall cavity from the attic down toward the kitchen. I got up, grabbed a flashlight, and stood in the hallway trying to pinpoint the sound. It stopped the moment I moved. Dead silence. The next morning, I found a small pile of drywall dust near the baseboard in the hallway. Just a little mound, like something had been scratching behind the wall all night. But there were no holes, no signs of mice, no animals in the attic. I started sleeping with earplugs. A few weeks later, I found the note. It was inside one of my kitchen cabinets, just a piece of yellow paper, folded in half. In shaky handwriting, it said, "Please stop." That's it. No signature, no context, just, "Please stop." I had no idea what it meant. Was it a prank? Did someone break in? I checked the doors, the windows. Everything was locked, nothing broken. It didn't make sense. I even called my friend Matt, who joked that I was going stir-crazy living alone. But something in my gut told me this wasn't just in my head. About 2 months in, I finally decided to investigate the attic. The access was in the hallway ceiling. I hadn't gone up yet. I'd been too busy with work and settling in. When I pulled the ladder down and climbed up, I was hit with this foul, rancid smell, like something had died up there. I held my shirt over my nose and started sweeping the flashlight across the beams, and that is when I saw it. A loose panel in the back corner of the attic, not original to the house. It looked newer, nailed on hastily. I pried it open. Behind it was a tiny crawl space, maybe 4 feet high, 8 feet long, and inside was a makeshift bed, old rotting blankets, empty water bottles, food wrappers, and the worst part, a stack of notebooks. I took one of the notebooks downstairs and opened it. They were journals, dozens of entries, dated years before I bought the house, and they were written by someone who lived inside the walls. They never see me. I wait until they sleep. The girls sang in the kitchen today. I miss music. I hate when they leave. I get hungry. Please stop hammering near my room. It hurts my head. I read page after page, horrified. Whoever wrote this had been living inside the house for at least 5 years, watching the previous owners, hiding, listening, crawling through the air vents and attic and walls, and now watching me. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on the couch with a kitchen knife in my hand, just waiting, listening. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again, Scratching, crawling, coming from the vent above the TV. I stood up, heart pounding, and shouted, "I know you're in there." Silence. Then, a voice. Muffled, croaky, barely audible. "Don't make me leave." I ran out the front door, called the police from my car. They didn't believe me at first, thought it was a squatter. But when they searched the crawl space, they found fresh footprints in the dust, a mattress, still warm, and one final notebook. The last entry read, "He knows. I don't want to go. The house is mine. They never found him. He vanished before they got there. No fingerprints, no ID. Just a name scrawled once in the front of a notebook. Daniel, 1993. Turns out a boy named Daniel had gone missing from that neighborhood decades earlier. Foster care case. Fell through the system. No one looked for him. They think he'd been living in the walls since at least 2011. Over 10 years. Watching people. Studying them. Hiding while they lived their lives, completely unaware. I sold the house 6 months later. Disclosed everything. The buyers didn't seem to care. But me? I haven't lived alone since. Some haunted houses aren't haunted by ghosts. Some are haunted by the people who never left. And they're not always dead. Sometimes they're just waiting. This story happened to me about 4 years ago, when I went on a camping trip with 2 of my closest friends. It's taken me a long time to talk about it, not because of fear, but because of how crazy it sounds. But I promise you, every word is true, or at least, it's how I remember it, and I remember it very clearly. It was early October. The trees were just starting to turn, and the air was cool enough for sweatshirts, but not cold enough to complain. We were in southern Missouri, deep in Mark Twain National Forest. My friend Chris found this spot that wasn't an official campground, more of a clearing you had to hike into. No fire pits, no bathrooms, just raw woods. It was me, Chris, and Jay. We've been friends since high school, and this was kind of a tradition. We'd pick a remote spot, disconnect from our phones, and just enjoy being in nature. The hike in was about 2 miles. We parked the truck at a gravel pull-off and started walking in around 4 p.m. I remember the air felt heavier than usual, like everything was too quiet. But I brushed it off. We were deep in the woods. Silence comes with the territory. We set up camp near a ridge. Our tents formed a triangle with a small fire pit in the center that we made from stones. Jay cooked sausages over the fire, while Chris passed around a flask of bourbon. It was one of those perfect nights, cold enough to see your breath, but warm enough not to care. Around midnight, we were sitting around the fire, talking about dumb high school stuff, when we heard something. Not a twig snap, not a rustle. It was a knocking sound. 2 knocks, pause, then one more. It sounded distant, maybe 50 yards out, but clear. Jay laughed and said, "Bigfoot's out there messing with us." But Chris and I just stared into the dark. I said it was probably a woodpecker, but none of us really believed that. Woodpeckers don't knock once or twice, and they sure don't do it in the dead of night. That night, I kept waking up. I didn't sleep well. There was this low, humming sound, like wind through a pipe. I couldn't tell if it was real or just in my head. But then, around 3:30 a.m., something howled. Not a coyote. I've heard coyotes. This was deeper, almost like a wolf, but drawn out. It started low and rose into this horrible, mournful sound. It chilled me. I sat up in my tent, heart racing. I didn't hear movement. No crunching leaves, no footsteps. Just that long, awful howl, followed by silence. In the morning, I asked the guys if they heard it. Chris said no, but Jay had. We both described it the same way. Chris just said we were imagining things, that the bourbon probably made it worse than it was. We decided to do some exploring. About half a mile west of the camp, we found what looked like an old hunting shack. The roof had collapsed, but there was still the stove and a metal frame bed inside. It looked abandoned for years. Jay found an old deer skull hanging from a nail and thought it was hilarious. But what really freaked me out was the tree next to it. There were marks, not random scratches, but vertical slashes, deep and high up, like 8 or 9 feet high. Chris said it was probably a bear, but I've seen bear marks before. These weren't like that. They were too clean, deliberate. That night, none of us were laughing anymore. Around 10 p.m., we were back at the fire. Jay had been quiet since dinner. He finally admitted he thought he saw someone earlier, walking between trees about 100 yards out. Just a glimpse, no details, but it looked like a man. Chris blew up. Said Jay was messing with us, trying to freak us out. But Jay swore on his life, said it didn't move like an animal, too upright, too smooth. That night, I kept my knife in my hand, inside my sleeping bag. Around 2 a.m., I swear I heard breathing outside my tent. Not heavy, just slow, steady breaths, right outside. I didn't move, didn't unzip the tent. I don't know how long it lasted, but eventually it stopped. In the morning, I found prints, not boot prints, bare feet, no joke. They were human, 5 toes, heel, everything, but longer, like someone stretched out a person's foot by a few inches. They circled our tents, twice. Chris finally started taking things seriously. We decided we'd pack up by noon and head back early. But before we did, Jay wanted to check one more thing. He walked to the ridge's edge to look down toward the valley. Chris and I followed. Down in the tree line, maybe 300 feet below, we saw something moving. It was tall, taller than any of us, broad shoulders, and it was just standing there, watching. We couldn't make out a face, just a silhouette. Then it turned and walked into the trees, slow as anything. We didn't speak. We just grabbed our gear and started moving. Fast. I don't remember the hike back. I barely remember breathing. At one point, Jay said he heard footsteps behind us. I didn't look. I didn't want to know. When we reached the truck, we threw our stuff in the bed and peeled out like the forest was on fire. Only when we got back to the highway did I feel my shoulders relax. We didn't talk much on the ride home. We didn't talk about it for a long time, but Jay and I never went camping again after that. I don't know what we saw. I've told this story a few times, and people always jump to Bigfoot, or some government experiment, or a mountain man living off the grid. Maybe it was one of those. Maybe it was something else. But I know this. Something was out there, watching us, following us. And whatever it wasn't afraid of us at all. Be careful where you camp, and never ignore the feeling that you're being watched, because sometimes you are.